What's up, you guys? We're talking UFC 323, which, take note, it's not taking place this upcoming weekend. Depending on when you're tuning in, it's not taking place the Saturday after Thanksgiving on the 29th. It will take place on December 6th. And this will be the last numbered event of the 2025 calendar year. It will be the second to last event that we're going to get. After this, we'll head over to the Apex, and that's it for 2025. We'll have a couple weeks break in time, and then I do expect to have major action taking place all throughout the first quarter of the 2026 year, as the UFC has that new deal with Paramount. So a lot of big things to come. I'm not going to hit you with a huge preview here. I do want to just briefly touch upon the co-main event and main event bouts, which of course, we got title bouts taking place. In the main event, we have a bantamweight championship match between Petr Yan and Merab Dvalishvili, which is a rematch. You guys know what's going on here. Essentially, the bantamweight division is just, it's ran through. Merab has ran through this division, and now he's circling around, and he's looking to take out Yan once again. He's coming in as a heavy favorite. We'll see if Yan, maybe he made some adjustments and he can make this fight a little bit more competitive. We'll see. I'll give you my thoughts on that fight as we get to the top of this video. And the only other fighter that will be making his way to fight the winner of this fight, or to be fighting Merab if Merab wins once again, is Umar Nurmagomedov. You guys know I have predicted that Umar will be the champion of this weight class at the end of the 2026 year. So, and that may even take place earlier than that, of course, right? Because Umar is probably going to be next, because there's just nobody else making a case to be fighting for the belt. Batista had some momentum behind him before he just was defeated by Umar. Other than that, I mean, you have Yadong Song, who's on a one-fight winning streak. He lost to Petr Yan before that. I mean, there's just really not a lot to talk about. You have some younger fighters trying to work their way up towards the top, but that's essentially what's going on in the bantamweight division. And then we head over to the flyweight division. This is where things get very exciting. When you take into consideration what is not only set to take place on the main card of this event, but when you take a look at the headliner of the last event to close out the year, right? The event following this one, in the main event, Manuel Kopp is taking on Brandon Royval. All right, I mean, that fight, another fight that's just going to be ridiculous. But Manuel Kopp has, he's had a case that he should have already been fighting for the belt for some time. I mean, you guys know how I feel about him. I think that he's an absolute talent. I think he may be the best flyweight fighter in the world right now. So we'll see how that main event takes place. Not only does he have to win against Royval, but he probably has to show out, because on the main card of this event that we're looking at here, we have Tatsuro Taira taking on Brandon Moreno. If Taira goes out here and dominates Moreno, I mean, it's very realistic he could be fighting for the belt next. We see that the UFC is not hesitant to give these young studs title shots, especially in this division, as in the co-main event here, Joshua Van takes on Pantoja. I mean, the six best flyweight fighters in the world essentially are all fighting here in the next two to three weeks, again, depending on when you're tuning in here, if you're catching this early. But that's what makes it so exciting, because there's a lot of different ways that the UFC can go. And I like this fight card, guys. I really do. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys all can, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And we have been very hot. I'm just going to say this real quick. We have been very hot. We're coming into this event off of a clean sweep, including a solid underdog target that we had on Kyoji Haraguchi. So if you guys want my official plays, shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram. I'll give you guys some details. And if you're interested, I am going to have a special holiday offer where if you sign up for these last two events, or even the final event, they're going to be for free as long as you sign up for the beginning of 2026, because we'll have that break in time. So I'll throw these fight cards in for free. If you're interested, reach out to me. Go follow me on all my social media. With that being said, we'll jump right into this. Let's go. We'll kick this thing off in the featherweight division, where we have the Ultimate Fighter winner, Mairon Santos, taking on Muhammad Naimov. Now, Santos, who is just 25 years old, he's a baby. He's bounced around weight classes quite a bit. We've seen him drop all the way down to the bantamweight division, and he's came up as high as 155. And in fact, that is where his last bout took place, and he looked quite good there against Sadiq Yusuf. Even as good as he looked in that fight, I think that 145 suits him best. That's where we saw him win the Ultimate Fighter. And when you take a look at his frame, I just think that this is where he should be. He just needs to continue to sharpen up certain aspects of his game. But he is a fighter that I think has a lot of potential, and I think he has a much higher ceiling than a Muhammad Naimov. Now, the elephant in the room when you're talking Santos was that Francis Marshall performance, which, I'll let you guys know real quick. I had him as an official target, and I was very pleased when I heard him announce the winner. I was jumping out of my chair. He won via split decision. I'll tell you what, although I don't think that he deserved to get his hand raised necessarily. When you kind of looked at the fight overall, it didn't seem like he deserved to get his hand raised. I actually did believe that fight was a lot closer than it was given credit for. Just don't look at that performance and turn your back on him, because he has a lot of potential. And that third round was close. Marshall was having some success pushing the grappling, and he ended that fight on top. And I think that's another reason why a lot of people really felt he put the stamp on it. But it was Santos that was landing the cleaner strikes, and he outstruck him 78-64. But I don't want to argue with you guys in the comment section. Marshall should have won the fight. No issues there. But look how Santos rebounded. He looked very good against Sadiq Yusuff. Had a little bit of a slow start once again, but the last 2 rounds, he looked solid. And I just think that he has abilities with his striking. Okay, he has some clean striking. We saw what he did to Khan Ofli when he won the Ultimate Fighter, hit him with a nasty left hook, I believe it was, hit him with that nasty counter left hook as they were trading in the pocket, showcasing some finishing ability. Now you take a look out of his 16 victories, 8 of them come by way of KO. He has no issue outpointing you, winning a decision in that fashion. And his takedown defense is getting better by the day. That's the key. As long as he continues to get better there, stuff takedowns, he has a nice frame for the division, and I think he can easily outpoint Naimov. I'm not high on Naimov. I know he has some abilities. I'm very familiar with him. He was hyped up going into Dana White's Contender Series, and he fell flat back then. If you guys remember how that fight played out against Colin Anglin, he gassed out essentially, and he lost that fight. And then he followed that up with a loss against Oliver Merab over in Titan FC. That's a fighter that I'm familiar with from the regional scene. And yeah, he started to put things together. His big victory was the Nathaniel Wood bout, which without a doubt, that's the big feather in his cap. And I hate to be that type of guy, but I think that was more of an off day for Wood. And Wood has talked about how mentally he's had issues at times, and he wasn't checked in for that fight. The Felipe Lima fight, nobody really knew who Lima was at the time, so we looked at that in disdain. But in reality, Lima is a stud fighter, and he came in on short notice. He was undersized, and he had better cardio than Naimov. Naimov's cardio letting him down once again. And the 2 bounce back victories, I'm just not that high on them. The Bogdan Grad fight played out very close. The Khan Ofli fight, 2 of the judges had that fight scored 30-27. I'm not to say that I'm not in agreement with the scorecards, but that doesn't really sum up what that fight was. That fight was extremely close, and he kind of just he edged out each round. As you guys love when I say that word, but that's the word I use to describe it. He edged out those rounds, and Khan Ofli is a fighter that I'm not that high on. We saw what Santos did to him. Naimov is probably going to get outstruck on the feet in this fight. I think that Santos can handle him there. Santos has about a 2-inch reach advantage. My graphic may be wrong here, but I do believe Santos he does have the reach advantage here, so that's a little bit of a miscue. He's a little bit shorter, but I think he'll have no problem outpointing Naimov. Naimov will look to change levels. We've seen he has some ability there, but I don't think he's going to have enough to just hold Santos down round to round. I think Santos, even if he has his butt touch the canvas, he'll be back up. He'll be the fighter looking to land damage. And this fight, to me, really looks like a decision victory for Santos. And you take a look at some quick numbers here. Santos, the more efficient striker. I'm not high on Naimov. He has some abilities, but they're just very bland, and they're not going to be enough, in my opinion, to defeat Santos, who is going to be getting rapidly better. When you look at his age at 25, this is a fighter that's going to look much better fight to fight. And Naimov is almost a finished product, almost, but not quite. But I don't think that he's going to come in and look to be this new regenerated fighter. So give me Santos here. You take a look at the line movement here. Santos opened up as a -200 essentially, and we see action coming in on him. He touched as high as a -265, and right now he's right around a -242. And I'm in agreement with the line movement. Now, it's kind of pushing it, because this is a fight that could definitely play out closer than Santos being a -240. But my feeling is that Santos is going to work his way to a decision victory. I think he wins a decision. Naimov has proven to be pretty tough. He's never been knocked out before. He's been subbed once. I don't see Santos pulling off a sub here. Even though Santos has finishing ability, this fight goes to a decision, in my opinion, and Santos gets his hand raised. Not a lot of value on that -240 line. That's not something that really has me too intrigued. I would like Santos more around where he opened up. I think the value would be on him more as like a -190. If it got there, that'd be great. So keep an eye if this line dips back the other way. Other than that, see what you can get on a decision prop. That's something that you want to take a look at. Now, there's not a lot of fighters that could say they've gone out there and knocked out Muhammad Ali, but the UFC newcomer here, Iwo Baraniewski, he's one that could say he's done it. Now, of course, in reality, not a victory, not a knockout over the legend Muhammad Ali, RIP, to one of the true greats there. But the victory that Baraniewski just had against Muhammad Ali on DWCS was a very respectable victory. Ali was a fighter that was coming into the show as one of the more promising prospects that the show has ever seen. And it was really his grappling background that gave him so much credit, but he was also starting to show major strides and flashes with his striking, and Baraniewski just shut that down. I mean, he slept him. He dropped him within seconds, and that was a huge victory in the sense that Baraniewski is a fighter who was being overlooked in regards to his grappling, right? He is a very decorated judo player, and he brings in a lot of skills as far as his grappling goes, but he's now quickly showing that he's comfortable on his feet, and he possesses serious power. Right? If you make a mistake there, he can hurt you. And in the light heavyweight division, in general, if you make a mistake and your opponent just brings that much to the table, they could put you out. So you could see either fighter slept in this fight, because Ibo Aslan, even though we're all down on him, don't overlook the power that he possesses, specifically early on in his fights, as he has 11 knockouts out of his 14 victories. And we could talk about him real quick for a second. Right? He's coming off 2 very disappointing performances. Right, going into the Ian Cutelaba fight, he had a lot of hype behind him. Based off the recent work he was putting in. Cutelaba showed that his grappling is very suspect. He landed some damage on Cutelaba. Cutelaba weathers the storm, and then he pulls off the submission in the first round, which that's a similar tale that you see in Cutelaba's fights. That's not the first time we've seen a fight play out like that for him. But then the Billy Alicana fight that Aslan just had, that was a real rough one. And it was rough in the sense that he was so hesitant. Right? He didn't have that same killer instinct that he normally has. He only threw 29, or he only landed 29 total strikes. He was on the back foot. He did not bring the fight. And Alicana, he does have a decently well-rounded game, but he's a low-level fighter in regards to fighting inside the octagon. So that was not a good performance, not a good look for Aslan. Aslan needs to get his head back on his shoulders. He needs to bring in that killer instinct that we saw in the Anton Trócoli fight, in the Rafael Cerqueira fight. We understand completely that Cerqueira is just there to be ran through. So you take that one for what you will, but you still like the fact that Aslan did what he needed to do. The fight that really looked good to me was the Trócoli fight, because that was a redemption bout. Trócoli was the only man to have ever defeated him at the time going into that rematch. And he lost that fight due to his grappling, right? In the second round. In the rematch, we saw Aslan have decent cardio. He looked, I don't want to say he looked better as the fight went on, but he didn't slow down, and he looked to be a more complete fighter as he got the finish in the third round. And then he just doesn't prove to be that same growing fighter in his last 2 bouts. And I'm not going to say that I expect to see him really get his head back on his shoulders here. I mean, I'm wary about who he is as a fighter, especially when he has a threat in front of him like Baraniewski, who I believe is going to be confident. He's going to come in looking to throw heavy on the feet. I mean, for him to go out there on DWCS and fight a fighter like Ali, who was so physically intimidating, and he had to have known what he brought to the table, for him to go out there and just storm across the cage and get that knockout in 20 seconds, I think it shows where he is at mentally. And I think that he'll be more mentally tough in this fight. So I do expect Aslan to kind of be on the back foot and be a little bit intimidated. If we see a knockout, I'm actually favoring it still to be Baraniewski. But then the X factor in this bout is that Baraniewski is a fighter that has those grappling abilities. He's a multiple-time judo champion. He has all kind of grappling awards, and I think that he'll be the more well-rounded fighter, and he could have a lot of success there. I think that it's very realistic we could see him land a nasty toss in the clinch and get on top position and start to unravel and showcase to us that he brings a lot to the table, more than just going out there and flatlining you in 20 seconds. He has a very deep amateur resume, and that was part of the reason, in my opinion, why he came in to that DWCS fight and was so poised. If he has continued success with the grappling, I could see him putting himself in a position to sink in a rear naked choke, or if he has an arm triangle choke in his arsenal, I think that Aslan will give that up. So I'm going to pick submission to be the method of victory, but I will be clear, there's not a lot of confidence on that specific pick, just in the sense that I could see Aslan losing a multitude of ways. If he's just very intimidated and he's on the back foot, maybe he just gives Baraniewski that decision victory. I could also see Aslan getting clipped and getting knocked out for the first time. I would not be shocked. Baraniewski does showcase that power. I could see him landing a KO in this fight. So I could see the victory coming a variety of ways. Now we take a look at the line movement, and the line is definitely in agreement with my assessment of this fight. You see a pretty big action coming in on the UFC newcomer here, as he opened up as a -154 and is already at a -218. And by the time this fight takes place, I think that we'll probably see him as a -250 favorite. That's kind of what I'm expecting to be the case. I think we continue to see that action coming in on him. People are down on Aslan. People are high on the potential of this UFC newcomer. So see what you can get on that sub prop, or however you like the fight to go down exactly. But I think regardless, you want to be Baraniewski to get his hand raised. I think that he ends up being the truth. And again, he has that grappling to go to. He's going to unravel and showcase us some stuff here. Jalin Turner has chose to dust himself off and get back up to his feet and give this thing one more shot as he comes out of retirement, if you will, right? He was contemplating retirement at a very early age. He's still just 30 years old, and I'm very happy to see that he's given this thing one more opportunity, as the UFC gives him a very solid matchup in Edson Barboza, who has his own asterisk next to him coming into this bout, where he is just days away from turning 40 years old, and he's coming in off a very suspect performance as he just took an L against Jakar Close, and he just did not look good in that fight. But I like this fight in the sense that both fighters have those asterisks next to them, right? Turner coming in off retirement. It's never good to be a fighter that is half in, half out, and especially a fighter like Turner, who has shown to have some quit in him essentially throughout his entire career. If you want to be honest, if you look at his mishaps in the cage, I mean, you got to question his will at times. And then you have Barboza, who is just battling father time. You take a look at just how rough it's been for Turner over the last 5 bouts or so. I mean, the Ignacio Baja Mendes one, that was a tough one, right? To go out there and get submitted by the young Baja Mendes, who has some grappling and jiu-jitsu abilities, but a fighter that's really known for his striking. That was a tough look to get caught in a triangle choke. The Renato Moicano fight, that was a brutal one. If you remember, he hurts Moicano at the end of that first round. He potentially could have got the finish, and he chooses to just like walk away and start celebrating the victory when he clearly didn't have it quite yet. Then Moicano breaks him down in the second round, puts him in a position where he just quits, right? He kind of like flattens him from side top control and just starts hammering down strikes. And you see that Turner's just looking for a way out, essentially. I mean, I guess he knew he couldn't get out of that position, and he was just done. He kind of shelled up. That was a very rough performance. I kind of heard of people... it kind of leaked out. I forget exactly where I heard this, but I know people were giving Turner a hard time. A lot of people are flooding his DMs with hate. And, you know, I'm not in agreement with that, with people that do that kind of stuff. I think that, you know, people were mad that he cost them money and the fact that he walked away when he could have had the win, and people were mad at him for that. Listen, if anyone's going to be down on themselves about making that choice, it's going to be Turner himself. And I'm sure he beat himself up for doing what he did, but I'm just not in agreement with people that do that type of stuff. I'll let you know that right now. When I was younger, I used to maybe be more of that kind of guy. But, you know, if you're young and you're doing that type of stuff, man, you don't need to go in on a guy that's already down on himself. I mean, if you actually kind of look at it, you know he was dealing with a lot for him to come out and retire from the sport. So, you know, mentally, he was going through a lot. Why do you want to, you know, dogpile on top of a dude that's going through it and make him feel even worse about what he has going on? So remember, people that if you do that type of stuff, you're doing it because you're going through your own stuff. Remember that, man. Hurt people. That's what that case is. And you don't need to focus on other people. Just focus on bettering yourself. I'll just throw that out there real quick. But I mean, the losses against Gamrot and Hooker were really tough in the sense that both of them were split decisions. And I will say that it was his will late in those fights that kind of was the difference. I do believe that was the case. At times, Turner slows down. I don't know if it's really just cardio. I think it's kind of a mixture of cardio mixed with mental issues and heart. I think it's kind of like a combination of it all. That's where you can question Turner, because when it comes to pure skill, he is nasty. He is dangerous. And we see when things go well for him, they go well. All right. What he did to Bobby Green was brutal. One of the worst stoppages that we've ever seen in the sport. But he's gone out there and has not only knocked dudes out, I mean, he's showed grappling ability, submission ability. He went out there, submitted Brad Riddell, Uros Medic, knocked out Joshua Kulibao back in the day. I mean, so this is a fighter that has really showcased ability. When you mix in the frame he has, the speed and the striking. He's a dangerous man. I'm going to say that Turner doesn't fall into a situation where he's breaking down late in this fight. I don't think that Barboza finds that finish. I think that this is a fight where you kind of see Turner take control of it from the onset, land some damaging strikes on Barboza. You see Barboza compromised. We may see Barboza push through and make it to the final bell. And in fact, I got to make a decision here because, I have Turner winning this fight. I'm going to say that Barboza, I'm going to say he avoids being finished. I am going to say that. I mean, he avoided being finished by Drakkar Klose and Lerone Murphy, which Murphy's been looking phenomenal. And he took a beating in those bouts. He pushed through. He made it to the final bell. He hasn't been finished since 2021, where Giga Chikadze got him out of there in the third round. So, I'm going to say he does push through, but the finish is live. It definitely is live. If Turner comes out hot and lands something damaging, we very well could see Barboza crumble up and maybe be finished in TKO type fashion. We take a look at the money line. Turner opened up as a minus 242 over here. He's now a minus 285. And I think what we're seeing here is it's kind of coming out that Turner is very driven for this fight, which you have to expect to be the case, right? A fighter that is contemplating retirement and then he turns the bus around and now he's trying to make one more go at this thing. He's 30 years old. I think that he's putting in a lot of work for this fight. He wants to come out there and show out. I don't think he wants to be put in a similar position that he's been in throughout the last couple of years. I think that he's very hungry to not be in those unfortunate situations. I'm sure that he has a bad taste in his mouth from those last couple fights, and I think he comes in here motivated and he's sharp and ready to go. And the youth is the main difference in this fight. Give me Jalin Turner to win via decision. We got the number 14th ranked middleweight fighter Marvin Vettori taking on Bruno Ferreira. Vettori has been battling the best of this division for years. Okay, he hasn't been consistently getting his hand raised, but when you take a look at the level of competition, I would say that it's much more steep than who Ferreira has been in there with. Now, Ferreira does have a first-round knockout over Gregory Rodriguez. That's really his standout victory. He was in there with Abbas Magomedov. You could put some respect on Magomedov's name, but he also lost that fight. It was competitive at times, but all in all, I just think that Vettori's resume runs deeper, which I'm not surprising anybody by saying that. I mean, victories over Jackson McVeigh, Armand Petrosian, even Phil Haas and Dustin Stoltzfus. I mean, take those victories for what you will. Not to say that you don't like what you're seeing from Ferreira, even with him showing development in his jiu-jitsu and grappling. He's showing not to be so one-dimensional as we used to look at him as more of just an early power puncher. It's good to see that. But I do think that if this fight progresses to the later rounds, I think that we will see that Vettori is more seasoned and more experienced there. And I don't really question where Vettori's head's at right now. I don't. He's been around for a while. He's still only 32 years old. And even though he's coming off a couple of losses, I thought that he showed a lot in the Brendan Allen fight. I think that the difference in that match was just the case that Brendan Allen is an absolute dog, as we just saw him versus RDR. I mean, the way that fight played out. Brendan Allen's a stud. He's a well-rounded fighter, and he was just a little outgunned. I think that Vettori came in very motivated. We know the backstory of him recently losing his brother, and I think he's going to come into this fight very motivated to get his hand raised because it's been a while. He's coming in off of 3 losses in a row against Brendan Allen, Roman Dolidze, and Jared Cannonier. I mean, these are perennial top fighters in the division. His other loss came by way of Robert Whittaker. In the mix, he had that first victory over Dolidze. That fight played out very closely. Before that, he had a victory over Paulo Costa. Look at that victory now, right? Costa, we weren't really sure what was going on with him, and he's showcasing that he is still a high-level fighter. He was in there twice with Israel Adesanya. The first fight played out relatively close. The second one for the belt, not so much, but still made it to the final bell. And that's something that we've seen consistently from Vettori as well. That's what he brings to the table, the durability. Okay, he is one of the toughest fighters in that regard that we've ever seen. All right, his chin, I put his chin up there towards the top of the rankings. He may be like a Mount Rushmore fighter. We've seen him take some nasty shots, and he is just a stone head. And that's important because Bruno Ferreira can put you out. He's a knockout artist, right? Out of his 14 victories, 9 of them come by way of KO. A lot of them take place early on. I think that, I put faith into Vettori pushing through being KO'd. And then as the fight progresses, I just put more faith into Vettori being the better fighter, the more complete fighter, and just having more to offer late. I know that Ferreira has shown development there, and I know that he's shown to still be somewhat of a threat late in fights. He's become a better version of himself, but I still think that Vettori will be the better fighter there. I put more faith into him. Okay, I understand that Ferreira has taken his game to another level, and he will be live in this match, but I feel more comfortable backing the OG veteran, the proven Marvin Vettori, and I'm not really putting him to the fire so much for the recent losses. Just understand they're against high-level competition. Now he's finally getting a little bit of a step back. I think that he gets his hand raised here. I'm going to say that he does win this fight via decision, which, before we jump into the money line, let's just take a quick look at this real quick. You take a look, out of the 2 losses that Ferreira has had, he was finished in both of them, which, of course, one of them was the Abis Magomedov loss where he was submitted in the 3rd round. He showed some heart, man. He made it to the 3rd round. And then the other finish was against Nursultan Rozaboyev. That's the one where he got caught early. I don't know if Vettori is going to put him in a similar situation to what took place there. I don't know if Vettori is going to hurt him first in the 1st round. I don't really see that being the case. And I don't question his durability that much based off that loss. Rozaboyev can't crack. And again, in the Magomedov loss, he did try to push through a lot of adversity. It just, Abis caught him late in that fight in the sub. And I think that this fight is trending towards a decision victory for Vettori. That's how he gets the majority of his victories. And you take a look at the line here. Vettori opens up as a -117. We now see him as a -134 favorite. So the slight line movement is in agreement with how I assess this fight. I think that you have to put more faith into the veteran here in Vettori, who, in my opinion, is still showing to have much more left in the tank. So give me the OG to win via decision here. So this is a fight that has had some buzz around it for quite some time. Rightfully so, because this is a match that makes so much sense. Terrance McKinney takes on Chris Duncan. Both of these fighters have made a name for themselves for going out there and delivering for the fans. I mean, that's what they look to do when they go into the octagon. They're not looking to just get their hand raised. No, they're looking to go to war. Terrance McKinney, notoriously known for going out there and getting early finishes, but also, at the same time, he is notoriously known for being finished early in fights, right? He's a fighter that takes you out or he goes out on his shield. He's a high-level fighter. I actually believe that if he had a little bit more, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but if he had a little bit higher fight IQ, I think that he would be more productive. He would be more efficient because he is a fighter that has high-level wrestling and grappling. He has big KO power. He's an explosive athlete. It's just that he gets overly aggressive at times and it catches him. And he does have somewhat of a suspect chin. We've seen him hurt so many times. I mean, you go all the way back to when he fought on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2019 against Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson is not even a fighter that's really known for landing finishes, and Sean Woodson hits McKinney with a flying knee. All right. So, I mean, that was really the beginning of a track record of when things go wrong for McKinney, they go really wrong. You take a look, even besides the Woodson loss from there, he went on to be submitted by my old buddy Derek Minner, right? Derek Minner caught him in the sub on the regional scene. A lot of the hype was derailed at that point in time. But you have to give McKinney credit because he did get the train back on the track. He went on to have a couple of first-round finishes outside of the UFC, a couple over there in LFA. Combined in those 2 fights over in LFA, they only lasted like 1 minute and 30 seconds. And then he got an opportunity to step in there with Matt Frevola, and he capitalized on it. He went out there and knocked Frevola out in just 7 seconds. From there, he went on to submit Faraz Ziam, who is an absolute stud. I mean, that was a big victory, but then we started to see, the up and down type of performances once again. Ismail Bonfim finished him. Nazim Sadykhov submitted him in the 2nd round. Actually, he went to the grappling later in that fight. That was a little suspect because McKinney, he has shown promise and abilities with his grappling. That wasn't the greatest look. It wasn't just that he had the suspect chin that we've seen, like in the Ribovics fight, where Ribovics caught him in 37 seconds. Now, since all those up and down performances, he is coming into this fight on a 2-fight winning streak. He went out there and finished Damir Hasnovic and Slava Borishev in the 1st round, one by KO, one by submission. So he has that hype behind him once again. But I'm going to cut to the chase here. I think that Duncan is stylistically a very tough matchup for him. Now, I've seen people saying that Duncan has a suspect chin. Of course, he was knocked out on Dana White's Contender Series back in the day. That was the only time he was finished via strikes, right? That was against the man himself, Slava Borishev, who we were just talking about. That was an off performance. Duncan was not the the fighter who he is today. Back then, obviously, he's put in a lot of work at American Top Team, and he's looked really good as of recent. Now, the Charlie Campbell fight, he was hurt very bad in that fight, so you can still have concerns and question marks about his defensive skills, but I like the toughness that he showed in that bout. And the difference from what you see from Campbell is when McKinney gets hurt in those situations, he just collapses. He gets finished up, where you see that Duncan does have a better chin. He does look to push through the adversity and try to land back on you. That is key in this match, because I think this is a fight where you're going to see both of them attacking each other heavily, and the durability of each fighter is going to pay dividends. The fighter that prevails through that adversity, who can hold up a little bit more so and then counter with that next shot, is going to be the fighter that wins, in my opinion. And I think that that's Duncan. I think that Duncan, I put a little bit more faith that he can avoid being starched by McKinney, just flattened out. And we see him, even if he's landed on a little bit, he's firing back. And then we see McKinney flatlined. And that's how I'm going to go here. I think that McKinney gets finished up once again. You could also mix into the equation that Campbell has shown some real development with his grappling and jiu-jitsu. He's huge for this weight class. I don't know, huge. He's big. He has a solid frame for this weight class. I mean, he's coming in phenomenal shape. He's very dedicated to the sport. Comes into this fight on a 3-fight winning streak. You see that the guillotine is nasty. He submitted Balaji Oki with that. He also submitted Jordan Vichenik with that. And then he had a pretty solid performance against Mateusz Rebecki as they kind of went to war. But Duncan was ahead, and Rebecki's not a bad fighter. I know he's been taking some L's, but that's a solid performance there. So the difference to me, once again, is Duncan just proves to be more durable and just hangs in there a little bit more so, where McKinney, he has all those explosive athletic abilities. He's well-rounded, he's dangerous, but I don't think that he finds the mark quick enough to avoid Duncan just proving to be the more complete fighter. So give me Duncan to get a first-round finish. They're gonna meet when the bell rings. They're gonna meet, and I think Duncan's gonna crack him with just a nice straight right, maybe a little bit of an overhand straight type of right that just cracks McKinney and hurts him. And McKinney will be firing back from that southpaw stance, but it's Duncan that gets the finish. Now let's take a look at what we got going on here as far as betting on this fight. I have seen Duncan still right now. I'm seeing Duncan around a -185. Now that's not the case on the line movement here. We're seeing him opening up as a -220. He was as high as a -250. He's back to a -210, but I think he is available widely as like a -185, -190 favorite. I would want Duncan -200 or better. And you could definitely target him to win inside the distance. I think that we see the KO happen. So see if it makes a difference to you to target Duncan via KO or just to take him on the money line. Go shop some lines. What's up, you guys? Just wanted to thank you for tuning into the show. And please do not forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot here. It doesn't really take much from you. It's free. Just click that button. That subscribe button means a lot to me. And if you guys have IG, if you're active over there, if you're on X, go follow me, because I've been pumping up the content, and it's the best way to keep in touch with me, and it means a lot. It helps me out, guys. Thanks. Back to the show. Good old Grant Dawson takes on Manuel Torres at 155. Grant Dawson. A lot of people, I've seen the comments, a lot of people wanted me to put out a video in regards to the recent Isaac Dulgarian situation. I never got to it, and I don't know what you guys wanted me to say about it. You want to know my thoughts? I don't know if right now is the time to do it, but what do you want me to say about it? It sucks if you're betting on a fighter that just throws the fight and you lose money in that situation. You never had a chance to win. I feel bad. I don't even know if I feel bad. I mean, if you're betting on sports, it is what it is. I mean, it's unfortunate. As far as the fighters that are doing it, do I understand the mindset? Especially back in the day when you could have got away with it. I kind of understand the mindset a little bit. I mean, I'd be lying to you guys if I said, oh, what kind of morals do these guys have? I mean, a lot of them, these fighters are being underpaid. They want to make more money, and they're trying to rig the system. They're trying to find a little way where they could put some money in their pockets. What do you want me to say about the situation? I know I saw a lot of people saying, oh, Teller still hasn't put out a video about the whole Dulgarian thing. Well, if you guys remember, when Grant Dawson faced off against Bobby Green, I had some big action on Grant Dawson. And in fact, he really spoiled the party for me on that event. I had a solid event going. I had him mixed in some parlays, I believe. And if you guys remember, I went to social media. If you guys follow me on Instagram at MMA Fortune Teller, I did put some content out really questioning his performance, because that knockout loss looked extremely suspect to me. It did. It didn't pass the eye test to me. Now, some of you guys I'm not gonna act like I'm a complete fight expert, but I've been in a good amount of fights, and I used to train. I never had a professional fight or anything like that. I was active in the local jiu-jitsu scene in South Florida. I mean, I know what it is to fight. I know combat, and that to me looked off. And people were underestimating what somebody could do as far as eating a punch. I mean, getting punched for real, kind of opening themselves up to being landed on and flopping down and taking some damage in reality too. It's not like you have to just fake it. I mean, you could take a punch. You could set yourself up to take a punch, especially these tough fighters, man, especially when you have that prize waiting for you at the end of the rainbow, that pot of gold there. And I really question that Bobby Green fight. And coincidentally, think about this, Grant Dawson blocked me. How coincidental. Somehow he came across that content. That's the only reason why I could think he blocked me. All of a sudden, I try to pull up Grant Dawson's Instagram, and he has me blocked. So think about that as well, right? And you know that he surrounds himself in that world, okay? He was initially trained under James Krause. I've interviewed James Krause. I talked to James Krause behind the scenes years ago. He was heavily involved in this world. You guys know all about that. Grant Dawson, I believe his wife, she has an Instagram, and she talks all about MMA betting and this and that. So, I mean, they're on top of betting on MMA in the sense they know about it. They're not like squares. They don't know anything about it. And I question that loss against King Green. So I'll just leave that here for the intro to this. I mean, I could talk a lot more about this. Everyone's been saying they want to hear my thoughts on the whole Bulgarian situation. It's the same thing, man. It is what it is. What do you want me to say about it? So I'll dive into this fight here real quick. Grant Dawson is a high-level fighter. He has high-level grappling abilities. His striking has taken major strides. He's been working at ATT for some time. He's bounced around gyms throughout the years, but he's always surrounded himself with high-level people. And I've been high on him way back since he fought on Dana White's Contender Series against Adrian Diaz. And we saw what he could do with his grappling. We saw the toughness, how he could push through adversity and then just break you with his pace and grappling. And he's gone on a hell of a winning streak. Think about this too. How funny is that? He faced off against Derek Minner. Imagine what was going on behind the scenes in that match there, as Derek Minner was the other fighter that had that situation going on with James Krause. I mean, I wonder if that was scripted. But the Leonardo Santos fight, remember, I believe he was en route to losing that fight, or at least should have been en route to losing that fight before pulling off that finish with just a second to go. The Ricky Glenn fight didn't go as good as his fights normally go, but he has since got his feet back under him, and we see him going in there and dominating these fighters. He's coming in off a dominating performance over Diego Ferreira. He outstruck him 195-84. He threw out 269 total strikes. He hit 6 of his 11 takedowns. You know what he does when he's hitting on all cylinders. He's pushing the pace, shooting continuous takedowns on you. He controlled Ferreira for almost 11 minutes. That's what Dawson brings to the table when things are going well for him. And we've seen the development with his striking. Manuel Torres is no slouch. I'm going to say this real quick before I get to the pick. Torres is a real threat. Not only can he knock you out, but he has shown grappling abilities. He had a submission victory over Chris Duncan, who we were just talking about, hit him with the rear naked choke. I mean, he's shown some development with his grappling, but where he really thrives is being a silky smooth striker, a technical striker that's long and he could hurt you. We saw him finish Nicholas Mota with that elbow. He knocked out Frank Camacho back in the day. That was, I believe, his UFC debut. Yep, he was coming in off the DWCS victory over Colton England, which he had a first-round KO there. I mean, he has real finishing ability. We saw it on display against Drew Dober. The finish that he just had over Drew Dober was nasty. If you remember how that played out, Dober was out. He was holding on to that leg, and Torres was just cracking him over and over. The only real loss to talk about was the Ignacio Bahamundes loss, which was on a huge stage. It was that the UFC 306 fight card. You guys know how that took place, that crazy spectacle in the Sphere. And Bahamundes is a sharp striker. They went at it, and Bahamundes got the better of him, hit him with that counter right, and it was what it was. I still think that Torres is a threat to anyone that he steps in there with. I think that he'll be live to an extent here. He needs to keep this fight on the feet, or maybe Dawson, Dawson already is going out there to lose. So who knows? I don't expect that to be the case with the heat that's out there these days. So Dawson should be coming in looking to get a W, but he still can get hurt in this fight. Torres has that ability, but I just see Dawson's grappling being the difference here. I think that's the difference in this fight. I think that Dawson goes to the wrestling consistently, gets takedowns, and that's the difference in at least 2 of the 3 rounds. Maybe we see Torres go out there and snag a round up, but if Torres doesn't get that early KO, if he doesn't hurt Dawson early, I think that's going to be a problem. And you note, Dawson was finished the green fight, but also he was finished in the regional scene by KO. That's two of the ways that he's lost fights, and he's only lost two bouts, right? So both of them coming by way of KO. And Torres has also been submitted twice before joining the UFC. So Dawson will be live for sure to land a sub. If I remember correctly, Torres was submitted by like knee bar and heel hook early on. So those are a little different, but maybe Dawson can get in on a rear naked choke or something like that. Dominating with the grappling. Maybe he puts himself in a position to lock in a sub like that. But I'll take Dawson to win this fight. I'm going to lean towards a decision. I'm going to say that Dawson snags up at least 2 rounds, maybe all 3, and he's the better fighter here, but it goes to the final bell. And you take a look at the money line. Dawson is a minus 220. He's bounced around a little bit, but this is not a fight that I will be willing to bet. I don't think I could bet on Dawson ever again. With that whole topic that we talked about to kick this segment off, I think you just stay away from Dawson fights because you don't really know. I'll just say this real quick before I close the segment out. There have been fights that have taken place over the last year or really for years that, you could have capped correctly. You could have been on the right side and you don't know if the fight actually played out the way that it was naturally supposed to play out. So you don't want to be betting on those kind of fights. And I think that Dawson's on the ban list. You won't see a ranking next to either of these fighters' names, but make no mistake, these are 2 high-level lightweight fighters in Firas Ziam and Nazim Sadykhov. And I almost look at them as dark horses in this division, more in the case of Ziam, who, if you guys remember, he made his UFC debut at just 22 years old, where he took on Don Madge, and he did fall short. But ironically, Don Madge, who was a fighter that was known for his striking abilities, he had a lot of Muay Thai experience. He wanted nothing to do with the striking of Ziam, who was just 22 years old. He was a kid, and that was a sign of what was to come, right? The respect of Ziam striking was warranted because we have seen he is dangerous on the feet. And you could just say that Madge was looking to take the path of least resistance, but it wasn't even like he had that much success because Ziam was stuffing a lot of his takedown attempts even as a kid. And we have seen that as a lanky kickboxing type of fighter, he has quickly picked up the overall sport, and he's not easy to take down. Besides the one fight against Terrance McKinney where he was submitted in the first round, he has had a lot of success keeping the fight where he wants to keep it. And now we're actually starting to see that he is even having success getting takedowns against high-level grapplers like he did in his last fight against Mike Davis. That Davis victory was a huge one for Ziam. It really showcased how far he has taken his game. That's how I'm looking at that bout. In my opinion, that was a massive victory for him where he hit 4 takedowns on Davis, right? 4 takedowns on 7 attempts, where Davis only hit 1 of his 8 takedown attempts. He controlled Davis for 7 minutes. He won that fight 30-27. I mean, that was a massive victory for the career of Ziam. And you have to understand too, right? Davis just bounced back with another big victory. So it wasn't like Davis is washed. Davis is a high level fighter. He bounced back with the victory after that one. So that fight is kind of showing the level that Ziam is hitting on right now. You rewind back to the victory that he had before that, nothing but respect towards Matt Frivola's way. But I think that Frivola has kind of shown what level he's on. He's a tough fighter. He's a well-rounded fighter. He brings in the wrestling threat. But I don't look at Frivola as even the same level as a Davis. But you still circle back to that fight. You have to love the way that Ziam was stuffing the takedowns against the cage and then making Frivola pay, and really making him pay when it was all said and done. If you remember how that fight ended, landing those knees in the clinch. I mean, he's so long. Is Ziam, he could hit you with nasty stuff in the clinch. He could work you from range. And again, he is showing now that he can even grapple with you. So he's just a major problem for anybody in this division. Victories over Claudio Puelles, Jai Herbert, and Mike Figlak. The Figlak victory is an underrated one. He's not a bad fighter. Yeah, we need to see more from Ziam. And this will be it. If he goes out here and gets a victory over Sadykhov, this is another big-time victory. And we'll see what's to come after this. He probably will have a number next to his name. I mean, there's a strong likelihood, or there's a good chance that could be the case. We'll see how the division is shaking up. But you take a look at what Sadykhov's doing. He's having success as well. But what you have to note is, like in the Nicholas Mota fight, which that fight took place in his home country of Azerbaijan. Mota had success before the stoppage, before he was finished. He had some success. If you remember, that was kind of a war, right? And the fight before that, he took out Bonfim, but the fight before that against Slava Borishev, that fight went to a draw. Borishev, not only did he win the first round, he won the third round, and that was coming off of a round in the second where he took a lot of damage. He was 10-8'd by Sadykhov. That's not a good look, man. If you go out there and you put in a 10-8 like he did against Slava, and then after that you follow it up with losing the third round, I really didn't like the way that looked. Also, remember the Evan Elder bout. That was a fight that he won via TKO. That was a doctor stoppage due to a cut. Evan Elder was slightly out ahead in that fight. And I know that fight. I'm very familiar with that fight, as I had an official play on Sadykhov that I cashed in on. I probably shouldn't have cashed in on that fight. You know, the cut really paid dividends there. So the rear naked choke over McKinney was a big one. The way that he kind of weathered the storm, if you will, in the first round, just kind of had a patient tactic to it, and then used his grappling, right? He dropped the first round, and then he went to his wrestling and grappling in the second round as he pulled off that rear naked choke. That was impressive to me because McKinney can grapple. He can wrestle. So, I mean, you could have question marks about how McKinney looks as fights progress, but I still respect that victory, and that may be his biggest one that he's had so far. But when you take a look at this whole thing, it's Ziam that has the more respectable resume, and he has more potential. He's younger. He's long, and if you take a look at these numbers here, he's the more efficient striker. Okay, he's not landing at an overwhelming rate at just 2.85, but he's only absorbing 1.62 strikes per minute. On the other hand, Sadykhov is absorbing more strikes than he's landing. Right, that's not a good sign. He's landing 5.55 strikes per minute while absorbing 5.89. I don't think that he's going to be able to have the success trying to go to the wrestling and the grappling like he did against McKinney. In fact, I would say that as the fight goes on, I could even see Ziam getting the better of the grappling. I mean, that's how high level he's moving right now. What he just did to Mike Davis, I'm not overlooking what he brings to the table there, but he is long. He is hard to put down on his butt. And even if you do, he's jumping right back up. He's working up against the cage. And then from range, he's going to be the cleaner striker here. So Ziam is definitely going to be my pick. I say that Sadykhov proves to be tough and falls short on the scorecards. So you take a look at the line movement here. We see Ziam open up as a -195, and now he is currently a -155. So if you want to be on the Frenchman's side, you're being patient with this line. I like him, and I like the fact that the line's coming down. He's the fighter that you want to back here, in my opinion. I don't know if I want to say much higher, but I'm higher on him. I think that he has a higher ceiling, and he's the fighter that can make a run in this division. Sadykhov can be that fighter that's fun. He goes out there, he gets those performance bonuses and all that, but he's not going to be that fighter that really threatens the top of this division, in my opinion. We have the rebooking of Mansur, Abdul-Malik, and Antonio Trócoli. And take note, I'll always try to point out if we have an issue with the graphic here. Malik actually has about a 79-inch wingspan, right? He's very long for this division, but Trócoli is more around an 81. So he is very long, and he will have a slight reach advantage. Trócoli, and for the record, they were supposed to fight back in February. That fight fell through due to Trócoli pulling out. And Trócoli is he's looking to make a run at the title of the worst ever UFC career. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but he started his career off with a knockout loss against the respected Magomedov, but the submission loss that he just had in the first round against Tresean Gore was not a good look, right? Getting caught in a standing guillotine choke. Let's say he gets finished here. If the UFC feels generous and they give him another opportunity and he goes 0-4 and he loses all by way of finish, he'll be up there. He'll be competing with one of the worst careers. But we're still a ways away from that. Let's see how he looks here against Malik, which, I'll let you guys know too. This was going to be the only fight where I didn't have a betting line for, so I was going to be able to guess where it was going to be. And I'll be honest with you guys. I'll tell you how accurate I would have been. The odds were just released, as you guys now see them scrolling on the bottom. And I have Mansur winning this fight, which is not going to be a surprise to anybody. I thought that he was going to be more around a -500 favorite. I was going to predict that he would have been like a -500 to a -600. So I was slightly off because we're actually seeing him being over a -1,000. On some books right now, he's already a -1,200, where he's mostly around a -1,000. That to me was a little surprising based off the fact that he didn't look that good in that last bout against Cody Brundage, which was overturned to a draw. If I remember correctly, on the night, they did score him the winner. They basically scored that last round, but then it was overturned, and that was because he landed that headbutt before he followed up that with strikes to get the finish. And it just wasn't a good look overall because that fight was somewhat competitive, and Brundage is not that guy. So we do pump the brakes on the Mansur hype, but I still do believe that he is a fighter that has a high ceiling. When you take into consideration that he's just 28 years old and he has the wrestling and grappling abilities, going into the Dana White's Contender Series bout against Wes Schultz, he had all first round finishes. So we didn't see him tested later in fights, and he really passed the test in the Wes Schultz victory, as that went to the very end of the second round where he got the finish. And Schultz, as we just saw in Dana White's Contender Series, he's not a bad fighter. And I was kind of saying that, if you guys remember, I was kind of saying that even leading up to that bout. I think that people were being a little harsh on Wes. He's not a bad fighter. He has grappling ability. He's tough. And that was a big victory. And he followed that up with victories over Nick Klein and Dusko Chudrovic. So we do pump the brakes on him due to the Brundage fight, but he's still a dangerous fighter. He checks off a lot of boxes. He can wrestle. He can grapple. He has some jiu-jitsu. He can box. He's long. He's powerful. And you just have to pick him to win this fight. Now, I don't think there's any type of value on him as a minus 1,000 favorite. And to play devil's advocate, maybe Trócoli comes in motivated here. He's a fighter that has had issues with drug testing. He used to fight up in the light heavyweight division. Now it seems like he's coming in clean, and it's catching up with him. He's not the same fighter that he once was, which I don't know how much of a fighter he actually was even back then. But he has some striking abilities. He has some jiu-jitsu abilities. Let's see if he could potentially have this fight play out similarly to the Brundage versus Mansur fight. I just don't see that being the case. And if you guys can see this here, he opened up over here as a minus 952, did Mansur, and now he is a minus 1205. So I'm not in agreement with that line. I don't think he should be that much of a favorite, but very realistically, he's going to go out here and steamroll Antonio. And I will say that's exactly what happens. I'll say that he gets a first round finish, first round TKO stoppage. He's going to do something similar to what he did when he kicked off his pro career and get Antonio Trócoli out of there quick. In the women's flyweight division, Maycee Barber looks to make that walk as she's set to square off against Karine Silva. We all know what happened in Barber's last match, as well, I guess you can't call it a match because it never took place, but she was set to take on Erin Blanchfield. It was a main event fight, a main event Apex match, and Barber was not able to make the walk. And there was a lot of speculation that it had to do with her recently getting breast implants. I believe that she has since denied that, and she said that the issue was more due to her just having a bad weight cut. So listen, I'm going to assess this fight as if Barber is healthy and ready to go and she's going to make weight. I'm going to assess this fight based off of her fighting abilities, but there definitely is an asterisk next to her in regards to this weight cut. So it's something that you want to monitor, see how she's looking on the scales before the fight. But as far as her fighting abilities go, I do believe that she's a high level fighter, especially when you take into consideration she's just 27. If you guys remember, she was trying to make her run at being, if not the youngest champion, I forget, she would have been one of the youngest champions of all time. I forget the exact numbers there, but she had a lot of early success. She came in to the UFC off Dana White's Contender Series, where she was just a baby, and she had a lot of early success. She went on to win her first 3 fights in the octagon via strikes, which is not something that you typically see in women's mixed martial arts. That's what makes her exciting. She does have that killer instinct. She does go out there and look to get those type of stoppages, and she's decently well-rounded too. And she has respectable victories already. When you take into consideration, she has W's against fighters like Jillian Robertson, JJ Aldrich. That was a fight that she was kind of down early on. She had a slow start, but she got that second round finish. The Roxanne Modafferi loss, she was injured. Take that into consideration. And the only other loss was Alexa Grasso. Debatably, she did lose to Andrea Lee. It was a close fight, and maybe she didn't deserve to get the job done, and she did spend some time on her back there, which was interesting. But Lee's not a bad fighter, and she did follow up that lackluster performance with 2 pretty solid victories. She went out there, finished up Amanda Ribas, and then she decisioned Caitlin Chookagian, which Chookagian is an underrated fighter. She's kind of like a gatekeeper. It's a type of girl who hasn't been that active, but make no mistake. I mean, Chookagian has victories over women that have defeated Karine Silva, which if you want to do some MMA math there, right? She has victories over fighters, I believe, over Viviane Araújo, which we got to mention the Araújo fight because Karine didn't look that good in that one. And you take a look at the numbers, the issue for her was her takedown defense, which that has been one of the main issues that I have with her. All right, you take a look in this fight. She was taken down 3 times on 3 attempts. She wasn't controlled for very long, but those takedowns did make a difference. She wasn't getting the better of the striking either. But then you also take a look at her last victory over the witch, Dione Barboza. This was a fight that a lot of people thought that she lost. This was her most recent fight where she won a close one. And like I said, many people had this fight going Barboza's way. If you take a look at the media scorecards, it was about split 50-50. And you take a look, Silva was taken down 3 times, once again, on 4 attempts. And this time she was controlled for over 5 minutes. This is important to bring up because Barber does have that wrestling and grappling ability. But I also believe that Barber should be able to get the better of the striking. She's aggressive. She looks to land damage. I like Barber here. Like I said, I'm going to assess this fight as Barber's coming in healthy and ready to go. I've seen more from her. You take a look at the numbers here. They do favor Barber with her landing 4.7 strikes per minute, only absorbing 2.9. You see that Silva is a fighter that absorbs more than she lands. I never like seeing that. Now, Silva, she has a solid frame for this division. She does bring in some ability. She has had some success. I don't want to make it seem like I'm completely overlooking her. But look at the takedown defensive ratio here. It's at 11%, with Barber having a 43% takedown offensive ratio there. So I think there is a path for Barber to change levels, but I also think she gets the better of the striking. So no matter how I spin it, you spin it. Barber gets the job done here. And you take a look at the line where she opened up as a -178, minuscule up and down movement. She's currently right around a -184. The concern is it's that weight cut. I'll circle back to that weight cut. I mean, if she comes in and she's compromised, this is a fight that potentially could play out closely. Or if you want to look at that Andrea Lee fight that took place not too long ago, it's just her third most recent bout, and you have question marks about how she looked there. You may be questioning her at a line like this, but I'm more looking at it as if she comes in ready to go, I think that she'll look fine. She's looked better since that Lee fight, and I think that she'll be a step ahead of Silva. I have more question marks in regards to Silva's overall game here. Give me Maycee Barber to win via decision. What a test this is going to be for Tatsuro Taira. He's taking on the former champ Brandon Moreno, who definitely seems to have the train back on the track right now. I mean, he's got momentum behind him. He's looking really good in there. And even though we may look at Moreno, not to say that you do, but he may be looked at in the light of a fighter that has hit his prime already, right? He made his run at the title, and then he lost the belt and whatnot. He's just 31 years old, okay? And this is a fighter, and Moreno, that could still take his game to further levels, okay? So there's no question about that. He has a lot going for himself still in this division. He has a very realistic chance to make a run at the title and reclaim his old belt. On the other hand, Taira, who's just 25 years old, he is fighting at such a high level. I would feel fairly confident in saying, when it's all said and done, before Taira hangs up the gloves, that he becomes a UFC champion. Okay, with him being 25 years old, I could only imagine what he's going to look like when he's 30, right? You see the striking starting to develop. We know he's a high-level grappler. His jiu-jitsu is so nasty. His back take is so nasty. The ability of him to finish the fight once he's there, it's extremely high level. We saw what he did to Alex Perez, the way he was shifting on his back, causing that injury. We've seen him go out there and pull off a variety of subs as he kicked off his UFC career, right? You look at the submission that he had over Jesus Aguilar, the triangle armbar, hit CJ Vergara with an armbar. And then we're now seeing the development in his striking. At least that's what I'm seeing, right? When you rewind the tape on that Hyun Sung Park fight, depending on how you want to look at Park, because he just took another L, which I was very happy to see, as I had an underdog play on Bruno Silva. I caught him at solid dog odds, but Hyun Sung Park isn't all what he was hyped up to be at one point in time. I would say that I agree with that statement, but Park's not a bad fighter, and I still think that the way Taira came out the gates, throwing his hands, I think we're seeing development there. He's quick. The major issue I have or had with Taira is that he has shown to have defensive flaws. He is there to be hit at times. We saw Royval touch him up a bit. And that Royval fight, it came down to that last round. And that was a learning experience for the youngster. And Royval is a dog. So depending on how you want to look at that loss there, I think that Taira has grown so much from that fight and is going to be a vastly better version of himself, as he very well could be in an absolute war with a fighter like Moreno, because Moreno is not easy to finish. Moreno checks off a lot of boxes. He'll sit there, he'll strike with you, he'll grapple with you. This fight's probably going to end up being a war, unless Tyra finds that early submission. If we see a sub, I see it coming from Tyra's side. Or if Moreno capitalizes on a defensive mistake that Tyra makes on the feet and hurts him, hits him with something nasty and wild on the feet. We know Moreno's very unorthodox. He's got that that awkward movement, and he's ready to snipe on you. And I wouldn't be shocked if Moreno potentially cracks Tyra there as well. Tyra's never been finished, but he's a young fighter, and he's not extremely tested. Moreno is a threat there. So if we see KO, Moreno side. If we see sub, Tyra side. If we see a decision, I'm going to say it's Tyra. I'm going to say Tyra, he does enough to get the job done here. Maybe we see him on the back of Moreno. Even if he doesn't find a finish, he's controlling rounds, and he's doing enough to solidify rounds, even landing damage while he's controlling him. He's on the back. He's dropping elbows. He's hitting Moreno up, and Moreno will be game. He will be tough, but I like my Tyra. I do. I like my Tyra. I've been very high on him from the get-go. If you guys remember that, if you guys have been tuned in, you guys know I've been very high on Tyra, and I've been saying that he is the future champion of this division. So, and I haven't turned my back on him based off that Royval loss. He's young, and he has plenty of time to make his route to that belt. So give me Tyra to pass this major test at Moreno. And we take a look at the money line here. This line opened up at pick'em odds essentially, and we're seeing slight action come in on Tyra. He's currently right around a -135. It's plenty reachable for me. I think Tyra should be like he should be like a -155 favorite, a -150 favorite. I think that the talent is there. This is without a doubt a test, and we'll see how he looks overall. But I have him capped as a -155 favorite, and I'm gonna say he wins via decision, but that sub is very live. Maybe Tyra is able to replicate what Pantoja did to Moreno back in 2016, and one of the many times they faced off. I think that was the Ultimate Fighter finale, if I remember correctly, but maybe he's able to pull off a rear naked choke like that. You also note that Moreno has showed a lot of development. Was never sub prior, and was never subbed since. So, maybe Moreno hangs in there tough, but Tyra still wins rounds with his control and his speed and development. What's up, you guys? If anybody is interested in my official targets, the bets that I will be placing for this event, you guys know you can shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram. I'll give you further details there. Besides just the holiday offer where you'll get these last two events for free if you sign up, I also have a couple different options, right? If you guys sign up through my referral link to a specific sports book, you'll get an added bonus to your account, and I will also give you a free 1-month package. So if you're interested, just reach out to me. I got a couple different options, guys. The former light heavyweight champion of the world, Jan Blachowicz, takes on Bogdan Guskov. Guskov has been proving that he is definitely UFC caliber, but this is a major step up in competition and a major test for him. Now, Blachowicz hasn't been getting his hand raised, but when you actually dissect his performances, it's not all bad, right? The Alex Pereira fight easily could have went his way. That was a closely contested match, and Pereira is a legend of the game. Of course, the Magomed Ankalaev bout that was for the vacant title went to a draw. It was a very close bout as well. The Carlos Ulberg bout that he just recently had was very closely contested. A lot of people thought that he won that fight. Ulberg did outstrike him, but Blachowicz had a decent amount of success, and he landed some impactful strikes throughout that fight. And I would say, even at 42 years old, he's fighting at a very high level. We know in the upper weight classes, such as the light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions, if you're an elite fighter and you take good care of yourself, you can get away with fighting up in your 40s a lot more so than the lighter weight classes. Because normally I would look at this fight, you see a 33-year-old, I don't want to say prime, but an up-and-coming talent like Guskov faced off against a 42-year-old former champ who's past his prime. I mean, I would be looking at this fight much differently if this was taking place in the lightweight division or the welterweight division. I think that Blachowicz still does have plenty more to offer the octagon right now at this point in time, and I think he's the more well-rounded fighter here. Okay, I do. I think that there's potential for him to get takedowns and have success down on the mat. That is a deficiency that we've seen in Guskov's game. If you remember, he made his UFC debut against Volkan Ozdemir, and shout out to my boy Ozdemir, who came through in a big way just recently. But Ozdemir, such an underrated fighter. You guys know I have high praises for him, and Ozdemir went out there and submitted Guskov in the first round. He hit that rear naked choke in just 3 minutes and 46 seconds. And since then, Guskov has had success, But take a look at the level of comp here. Zach Payuga, Ryan Spann, he has some abilities, but he's a very up and down type of fighter. Billy Elikana shouldn't even be fighting in that weight class. And Billy had success getting a takedown early on in that fight as well. The Nikita Krylov victory that he just had, I'll tell you what, first off, it did cost me some money. I had Nikita to win that fight. Nikita, he seems to be a shell of himself, and it's a shame because he was a very talented fighter at one point in time, but that was an atrocious performance. He looked so lethargic there on the feet, and he never shot a takedown. The path to victory, even though Krylov has striking ability, that's his bread and butter, he also has grappling abilities, and he was supposed to get that fight down to the mat early on where he could have took that fight over or potentially even hit an early sub like Ozdemir did, and he didn't do that. I trust Blachowicz to test him there. We have seen that Blachowicz has a high fight IQ. He has grappling abilities. You think back to when Blachowicz fought Adesanya. I mean, shooting takedowns off the rip, controlled Adesanya throughout the entirety of that fight. There's a reason why Blachowicz went on to have as much success as he has, because if you remember, when he kicked his UFC career off, he wasn't a fighter that was really looked at in high regard. There was a lot of losses going on, and he took his game to a whole nother level. And I think it has a lot to do, of course, with discipline and all that, but it has a lot to do with fight IQ. He makes smart decisions in the cage, and he's a well-rounded threat. So even if he doesn't get those takedowns like I think he can, obviously he has big Polish power. He can get a knockout on the feet. He's a technical striker. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. He's a more proven fighter. He's 42, but I think he has more to offer the fight game. And I'm going to side with the former champ to get his hand raised here. You take a look at some grappling numbers. Guskov with a 50% takedown defensive ratio, although I think he should be tested more. I think that fighter should be testing him there more. And you look at Blachowicz, he's hitting a 48% takedown defensive ratio. That's not bad. I think there is a path to victory there. But as I said, if he has some issues getting it there, he's tough and he could more than hold his own on his feet. Maybe we'll see Guskov has a little bit of a speed advantage. He has youth going for him. Maybe we see him pumping the volume a little bit more so. You take a look at the numbers here. He's been landing 3.87 strikes per minute compared to Jan's lengthy 3.44 on the strikes there, right? A lengthy UFC career to dissect those numbers on. And but he's only being hit with 3.03 strikes per minute. But I do think there's potential that Guskov can kind of out-volume a straight kickboxing type of match, but that's not what we're getting here. And the power strikes will be coming by way of Blachowicz. Not to say that Guskov doesn't have power in his own right. He does, but you take a look at the line movement here. Blachowicz opens up as a -108. Technically, he was a slight dog here. It was essentially pick 'em odds. And we have seen action consistently coming in on Blachowicz. Not a lot of it, but across the board, we have seen slight action coming in on the former champ. I'm in agreement with that line movement. I have Blachowicz winning this fight. I think that the finish is it's very realistic, whether it's a sub, a KO, but it's also very realistic we could see a decision. This is one of those fights where I'm very split on the method of victory. I think it's almost like even across the board. It can come almost any way. I'm going to say Blachowicz, I'm going to say he wins a decision. I'm going to say when he has moments where he gets this fight down to the mat, we see a little bit of growth in Guskov's grappling game where he doesn't put himself out there to be finished, but Jan's still solidifying rounds there. So give me him to win this fight via decision. The finish is live, though. Henry Cejudo makes a return to the octagon. He's taking on Peyton Talbot, and there's so much contrast in these two fighters. Henry Cejudo is 38 years old. He's a fighter that has flirted with retirement. On the other hand, Talbot is a fighter that's just on the up and up at 27. He's youthful and has such a promising future. Cejudo has that wrestling background, that Olympic caliber, gold medal Olympic caliber wrestling, while Talbot is a fighter that has thrived off of his dynamic striking. He's one of those new age type of fighters, and he struggles with his grappling. And I saw that leading up to his Dana White's Contender Series fight that he had against Reyes Cortez. When we broke down tape on him from his early fights, we actually saw that he was taken down quite a bit early on, and he was the type of fighter that would work up back to his feet and then land these devastating KOs. Okay, that's the type of fighter that he was going into that Reyes Cortez bout, which I actually thought at the time that Cortez potentially could have used his wrestling to have a lot of success, and that wasn't necessarily how that fight played out overall. Since then, he gets signed to the UFC. He's going out here. He's landing these devastating KOs. I mean, what he did to Yanis Gumori was ridiculous. That took him just 19 seconds. But that did lead him up to that Raoni Barcelos fight where we saw the grappling and wrestling deficiencies catch up with him as he was climbing up the ladder. Barcelos is a fighter that has, I believe he was some kind of Brazilian wrestling champion. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's high level there. And Barcelos was able to hit 8 takedowns on Talbot. He was able to control him for almost 10 minutes. And that was a tough night out for Talbot. But since then, you do have to give Talbot credit for how he looked in that return bout, in his most previous bout against a high-level fighter and Felipe Lima, as he stuffed a bunch of takedowns. Okay, let's do the math here. Felipe Lima almost only hit 3 of 15 attempts. Okay, so he stuffed 12 takedown attempts against Lima. That was the difference in the fight. He began to land that damage on Lima. Lima is a well-rounded fighter, so that was a great look for Talbot that really showed that he's putting in the work to take his game to another level. All right, so that's key here. But I still do have question marks in regards to him being locked in a cage with Cejudo, because Cejudo's gonna solidify takedowns. I do believe that to be the case, at least early on. Can he hold Talbot down? That's the question I have, because Cejudo, although I think his wrestling is higher level than Barcelos, I think that he's more likely to get a takedown. But you also mix into the fact that Talbot's developing and getting better there. Can Cejudo hold Talbot down? Because Barcelos is a longer-limbed fighter than Cejudo. He has maybe better jiu-jitsu, you could say, and he was controlling Talbot a lot in like that half-guard position. He was on his back. He would have like one hook in. He would hold Talbot down. I don't know if Cejudo, with his small frame, can he hang on Talbot and just hold him down enough to win this fight? I don't know, man. Talbot's probably going to be working back up to his feet. He's going to be landing damage. Cejudo is very durable, though. He's not easy to be put out. The only time we've seen him finished via strikes was when Demetrius Johnson got him with all those knees and whatnot. And Cejudo was a much more one-dimensional fighter back then. He was a wrestler that was just figuring out MMA. And, you know, I've been following Cejudo from the very beginning. If you guys remember, as he turned pro, he was coming into these bouts wearing gold trunks and whatnot. And, I mean, props to him for having the success that he's had, right? He's the triple champ. He's a great fighter. And, you know, this one, it's a tough one for me because Henry Cejudo has some of the best fight IQ that I've ever seen in the fight game. There's a reason why he went on to be a gold medalist. There's a reason why he's gone on to be a double UFC champ. It's not just his physical abilities. This is a guy that puts in the work. He's very intelligent, and he's going to fight a smart fight here. And you know what, man? This is a tough pick for me because I think that Talbot very likely can stuff takedowns as the fight progresses and land a lot of damage here. He's going to have a massive reach advantage. He's going to look better than ever. And Cejudo, he's aging. He's flirting with retirement. But I'm going to say, and you guys know what I'm about to say, I'm going to say that Cejudo comes in hungry and in shape, and he's ready to go, and he does just enough to squeak by with the decision. You know, as I was rewatching the Aljamain Sterling fight that he had, which I had him winning, in fact, okay, I had him defeating Sterling. The way that he was hitting those takedowns early on in that fight was so impressive because Sterling is not easy to be taken down. And Sterling is a much higher level grappler than what Talbot is. Since then, he lost the Dvalishvili fight, but I mean, Merab is an animal. All right, we're going to be talking about him here in a second. Merab is just, he does that to everybody. So, and then the Song Yadong fight, I think it's safe to say that Song is a more polished fighter overall. He has more experience than Talbot. So, yeah, I wasn't crazy about the way that Cejudo looked as long as that fight lasted. Obviously, it didn't last that fight. It ended up being stopped early. But I wasn't crazy about the way that Cejudo looked. But in this matchup, Cejudo, he may have that early grappling success, and he could try to wear on Talbot, and then maybe we start to see him drown Talbot. Don't forget, too, in that Barcelos fight, Talbot, even though he had some moments, that fight ended with him like flattened out, being hammered on by Barcelos. So it wasn't like Barcelos started to gas out and struggle to get those takedowns. I mean, Barcelos was still hitting those late. Cejudo comes in phenomenal shape. Maybe we see him just continuously getting those takedowns, and Cejudo can hold his own on the feet, but he's going to be flirting with danger there. I'm going to pick the dog here. I'm going to pick the dog. This was a card that was, for me, it was very hard to side with dogs and a lot of these matchups. So I got to give you guys one dog. I don't want to hear that token dude in the comment section say, no, you picked all favorites. So I am going to say that Henry Cejudo wins a closely contested decision here. And we take a look at the odds. Cejudo opened up as a +175, and we see action coming in on Talbot. So people are putting a lot of stock into the development that we saw from Talbot in that Felipe Lima fight, and I completely get it. And it's very realistic that Talbot is just too big and has developed and just going to be the better fighter. He's going to be able to keep this fight standing. He's going to land damage, and he may even land a KO. He's always live to land a KO. So I get it, but give me the dog here. I think the value is on Cejudo at the very least. I think that the value is on Cejudo at plus 202, and I hope he shows up and gets his hand raised. And that brings us up to the co-main event where we have the second greatest flyweight to have ever done it in Alexandre Pantoja. You have to have him behind Demetrius Johnson. It's going to be hard to surpass DJ. Not to say that Pantoja can't do it. He has a lot of big opportunities coming up on the horizon. I would have loved to have seen him go up to the bantamweight division, but it doesn't seem to be a near reality as there's so many new faces working their way up towards fighting him. Even if he gets past Joshua Van here, he has a fight coming up, or a fight that could be coming up with Manel Kopp. He'll have fighters like Tatsuro Taira coming up to face him. So I think that he is pretty much going to be cemented in this division throughout the 2026 year. If he runs through all of this premier talent at the top of the division, then we could start to talk about him going up. And imagine if he were to face off against Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, that would be crazy to see if Merab continues to defend. He's going to be a little undersized there, but Pantoja is so skilled, you never really want to count him out. And he may be even a better version of himself with some added muscle and added weight. I don't know if that's the case, but these are some of the things that we have to look forward to potentially. First and foremost, though, he's going to have this absolute dog, Joshua Van, coming at him. Not only is Van a dog, but he's an extremely technical striker. And if Van can keep a fight on the feet with you against anybody in this division, you're going to have an extremely tough time, because the volume and the pace that he pushes is about second to none, right? So, I mean, if you're trading back and forth with him, the difference in a lot of his fights are the fact that he's going to slightly outland you, right? And he actually didn't outland Brandon Royval, so excuse me there, but the difference in that fight was he was landing much more cleanly and much more impactful. As one of the judges had that fight scored 30-27. Maybe it was a more accurate scoring of that fight being 29-28, but Van was ahead, and it was a wonderful fight to watch. The pace of that fight was crazy. I think that bout did break some statistical records, and that's what you get from Van. Van's going to always go out there and look to break records with the strike count. And imagine when it's all said and done, right? When he's 35, 36, if he spends the entirety of his career in the UFC and he's active, you got to think that he's going to surpass all the total strike markers. And you take a look at what he did to Bruno Silva. He had the knockout over Silva in the third round. He looked phenomenal in that fight. Silva just bounced back with the big victory. I mentioned that earlier. He had a victory over Rhea Sayura. That was a big one in the sense that Sayura brought in the grappling abilities, and Van needs to continue to prove himself in that light. He has to show development there. If you remember early on when he kicked off his UFC career, yes, he was still getting his hand raised, but we saw him go through slight adversity against lower level fighters like Zimagulov and Borjas and Felipe Bunes, right? There was moments and times in some of those fights where we saw him taken down. And what we've seen from him is rapid development in his get-up game and his takedown defense. We can quickly look at the Charles Johnson loss. That was I keep saying that, the elephant in the room. That's the elephant in the room. When you take a look at his resume, that fight was playing out close, and eventually he got caught. I thought that he was en route to winning that fight still if it would have made it to the judges' scorecards, but Johnson was very much in it. Johnson cracked him coming in. He got overly aggressive, and that's something that you have to be wary about with Van. He's very aggressive. He marches forward, and as he faces fighters that can kind of put a stamp on him, it can hurt him. And Pantoja can hurt you. Pantoja is dangerous, right? We all want to talk about the grappling abilities that he brings to the octagon. I think that's what he does best, taking your back and just dominating you with his jiu-jitsu and wrestling. That's where he is just elite, but his striking is not bad either. He could throw down on the feet with you, and early on, if Van marches forward recklessly, I can see Pantoja clipping him with like a nasty hook or something like that. But where I see Pantoja winning this fight, and the reason why I am backing Pantoja here, is I think he's going to get takedowns. He's going to change levels, and throughout this fight, that's going to be the difference. Even if this fight's a war, Pantoja can hold his own on the feet. It'll be close there, but then you'll see Pantoja change levels and snag rounds up like that. And you also have the possibility that Pantoja just goes out here and really has success with the takedowns, like he just did against Kai Kara France. He dominated France. He dominated Kai Asakura. The Steve Erceg fight played out closely. If you're Van, you want to try to replicate some of what Erceg did there. I understand that was a fight that played out closely. And the Brandon Moreno fight was a fight that played out closely. That came down to a round. But even then, the difference in that bout was the grappling and the wrestling of Pantoja. And I'm just not ready to back Van at this point in time. I love what I'm seeing from him, but he's a young fighter that has made mistakes early on in his career. And you take a look at the numbers. Yeah, he's landing like crazy in there. 8.86 strikes are landed per minute. He also absorbs a lot of strikes. He absorbs 6.36. And Pantoja, I don't know if you want to say he's a more efficient fighter, because if you take a look at the numbers, I mean, they're close as far as efficiency goes. But I could see Pantoja landing and then dropping down, changing levels. And I got to back the champ here. Pantoja has put a lot of money in my pockets throughout the years, and he's the more complete fighter, and I'm going to back him. Now, as far as the line goes, where Pantoja opened up here as a minus 240, not a crazy amount of movement. I mean, I guess he touched minus 222. Now it's going the other way. He's a minus 260. I think that Pantoja should be right around a minus 250 favorite. That's where I have him capped. So depending on where this line goes from here, we could talk about where the value is. It's pretty much spot on right now. If he ends up being like a minus 300, minus 290, if it goes even past that, I mean, I don't see any value on him, and I would caution you to back him at a high line like that. Where what I would like to see, I would love to see action come in on Van. I want to grab Pantoja in the upper minus 100s. I don't know if that's going to be the case. We did see him as a minus 210 for a brief point in time back on October 19th here. We'll see. We have plenty of time for this line to unravel. I hope people are buying in to the early success and the early hype that Van has had. I hope that's the case, but I don't know if that's going to be what we see. So give me Pantoja to win this fight, and I'm going to say Pantoja wins via decision. I'm going to say that he goes to the grappling. I'm going to say he doesn't find a submission, and he doesn't land that KO, even though we've seen Van submitted and knocked out in both of his losses, right? They both have come by way of finish. I'm going to say for the first time, we see Van lose via decision. In the main event, we have the rematch between Merab Dvalishvili and Petr Yan. If you guys forgot, Merab absolutely dominated the first time that these two men fought. You take a look at the numbers. Merab won 50-45 on all judges' scorecards. He hit 11 takedowns. Not a crazy efficiency on the takedown ratio, as he shot 49 attempts, but there's no issue with that. I mean, that's don't look at that in a negative light. That's great. The fact that you could push a pace like that and just continue to chain wrestle and shoot and shoot and shoot, I look at that in a positive light. And you probably should expect Merab to look to do the same thing here. He's going to continue to shoot on Petr Yan. If Yan stuffs a couple early takedowns, Merab's never going to stop. You also take a look at the total strikes. Merab outstruck him 202 to 87, right? The pace that Merab pushed in that fight was crazy, and he's continued to do nothing else but that since that fight. Now, since that fight for Yan, he's actually looked pretty good. And I think that we've seen some development from him. He's just 32 years old, and he's still refining himself as a fighter. He looked great against Song Yadong, Davison Figueiredo, and Marcus McGee. In the Song fight and the Marcus McGee fight, he had a little bit of a slow start, and then he really started to pick things up. And that's kind of a good thing in a sense, right? This is a 25-minute fight. I mean, if we see something similar there where he starts off slow, but then really starts to pick it up, if he can keep this fight standing, he's the better striker. That could be a positive thing for him, but it all starts with him keeping it standing. That's the whole conversation here. He has to keep this fight standing. If this was a straight kickboxing match, for sure, I would be on Petr Yan. He's the better striker. He's the more refined striker. He's actually, in my opinion, he's one of the greatest strikers in the game right now. The way he switches stances and the diverse amount of attacks that he has. He'll hit you with elbows, kicks, knees. His boxing's elite. He is the better striker here. It just simply comes down to the fact, can he create that space? Can he stuff the takedowns? And I mean, I'm going to sit here, if you force me to make a decision, I'm going to say no, he can't. I'm going to say he can't, but it's possible It's possible. He's going to be more complete and be more prepared this time than he was the last time they faced off. He also has the advantage of having been in there for a long time with Merab, and he knows what to expect now. He knows what he needs to do to try to shake things up and change things. But it's a lot easier said than done. This dude, Merab, I mean, what he's doing in the octagon, it's just crazy. What he just did to Corey Sandhagen, that was phenomenal. Not only just having success with the wrestling, I mean, he was having success with his striking too. When you're so worried about him taking you down, I mean, he's showing development with his boxing skills. He could push the pace on you there, and you got to pick Merab to win this fight. You just have to. Yeah, you have to. What are you going to do? Now, as far as the odds go, I don't find a ton of value on Merab as a minus 526. I don't really find a ton of value on Merab here as a minus 400. Okay, so I do have this fight capped closer than what we're seeing there. I think that Yan is live. I think he's a fighter you don't want to completely count out here. All right, if there's someone that can come in here and potentially defeat Merab, I know it sounds funny to say that because he was dominated the first time, but Yan is a well-rounded fighter, man. He's a well-rounded machine, right? You know, there's only one machine here, but you guys know what I'm saying. I mean, there is some potential here, but you got to go with Merab. But I still think the betting value is on Yan. If you have to bet on this fight, if you want to bet on this fight, maybe you throw something small on Yan. You're catching him at plus 310. He was already as high as plus 380. I mean, I think there's some value there. I do. But all in all, I say Merab wins a decision. I'm going to say this time it's not as dominant. I'm going to say that Yan at least wins a round. I'm going to say this fight is like 4-1 Merab, maybe even 3-2. But I still think that Merab does enough. And if you're really looking for a specific bet for this main event, maybe actually what you want to do is target Merab to win via decision. And depending on what you can get, because it's still not going to come down that much, but that's a route for you too. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. I got to leave you with some quick parting words. One of the last big events, in fact, really the last big event that we have taken place in the 2026 year. I'll have another opportunity to hit you with some closing thoughts before the very end of the year, but I hope you guys are staying productive out there. You're staying positive in a variety of ways. And what can I leave you guys with? Something that could maybe help someone out there. If anyone's going through any kind of health issues, I'll say this, or any kind of issues really, right? Like you go through life's adversities, and this is something that kind of was back on my mind, right? When you go through something that really is wearing on you, you're going through something physical, mental, whatever it is, just remember a lot of times what happens with those adversities does come positives. Remember, you have to have that mindset. So if you're going through, for example, you're going through some health issues, a lot of times what happens to you is you start to think, man, when I get right, what I'm going to do or how I'm going to appreciate being able to do this and that. And the key is to remember that energy and bottle that energy up. And then when you do get back to your health, or you get through whatever you have going on, you remember that, and you actually you come through in that sense, and you remember that consistently, and then you do and you accomplish certain things that you weren't getting done because you were complacent prior. You were just going through the motions, and you were complacent with your health being great and being able to do this and that. You're sitting around smoking every day or whatever. And I have nothing against that. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes you have to shake things up, put the bowl down or put the alcohol down, or just get off the video games and get certain things done that need to be done. Because you can't just cruise through just on cruise controls, doing the bare minimum. There's certain things that need to be done, and you'll feel better about them when you get them done. So for anyone that's in that type of situation, remember, you're going through these adversities. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Nothing lasts forever. And then when you get to the end of that tunnel, you're going to be stronger than you were before. Remember that. All right, I'll leave you guys with that. And like I said, we'll hop on the mic one more time before the end of the year. And I hope you guys all have a great end of your year, the last couple of weeks leading up to New Year's and all that. So, and then we'll kick off 2026 and we'll set some real goals. All right, guys, signing out. Teller.